Naruto, God-level system author, Blue Water God. Chapter 191 The Worthless Otsutsuki Trio. Gzji, will the system not recover the body? Xianchen asked Xiangzji. What he thought in his mind was that since these three guys are useless, it would be better to sell them to the system for some money. I have to say that Xianchen is indeed a bit unscrupulous. The Otsutsuki trio were also a bit unlucky. They were shot by Xianchen without saying a single line. Although the skin on the body is very pale, it is known by luck that they are actually Africans. Of course. But you have to be mentally prepared. The bodies of these three guys are worthless. Gzji replied. Just accept it. Xianchen brought three corpses and entered the system space. Sarah was startled when she saw the three corpses, and reached out to grab Xianchen's arm. This was the first time she had seen corpses, and she was a little scared. You estimate the price, how much exchange points these three guys are worth? Xianchen patted Sarah's head, comforted Sarah, and then looked at Gzji. The price of this Otsutsuki peach style is a bit more expensive, with 500,000 exchange points, 400,000 exchange points for the Otsutsuki Mupu style, and 300,000 exchange points for the Otsutsuki Gold style. Gzji glanced at Xianchen and said in a low voice. What? Xianchen's eyes widened, wondering if he had heard it wrong. Then Xianchen pulled out the mall list and found Samsara Eye. The price of Samsara Eye in the system was not the same, and the price was divided according to ability. Xianchen's Jigyu Jade Reincarnation Writing Wheel Eye, only the ability of Reincarnation Writing Wheel Eye, 10 million exchange points. Otsutsuki U's 9 Goose Jade Reincarnation Writing Wheel Eye, 8 million redemption points. Otsutsuki Kaguya's Reincarnation Writing Wheel Eye, 5 million exchange points. Uekai Hamadara's Samsara Eye, not including the Samsara Eye of the forehead, 3 million redemption points. Otsutsuki Peach Eye of Reincarnation, 2 million exchange points. Uekai Husasuke 6 Hooked Jade Samsara Eye, Single Eye, 1.2 million redemption points. Reincarnation Eye, Unknown Pupil Technique, Self-Awakening, 1.5 million exchange points. Xianchen was a little stunned. He didn't expect that the system mall still had his Reincarnation Writing Wheel Eye for sale, and it was still a sky-high price of 10 million exchange points. After being shocked, Xianchen didn't care anymore. The system was all-encompassing. What was there? The Reincarnation Eye of Otsutsuki Peach style is worth 1.5 million exchange points, and the recovery price is only 1/3. I even gave you the corpse. Why is it so worthless? Xianchen pointed at the system panel and said to Gzji. Sarah looked at Xianchen and Gzji with a puzzled expression. Only Xianchen and Gzji could see the system panel. She couldn't see it at all. Look at me. It's useless. It's not my recycling. The price given by the system, I can't do anything about it. Gzji spread her hands and said. Then I'll buckle the eyes of reincarnation. After thinking about it, Xianchen reached out and buttoned the 2 eyes of reincarnation on the palm of that Ankmatau style palm. If it's just a corpse, it's only 100,000 exchange points. Do you still sell it? Of course I sell it. It's useless for me to keep it. Xianchen nodded. This fishing rod, fish basket, and this red ring shouldn't count. Xianchen pointed to their ninja tools next to them. This can be sold separately, but adding up to the 3 is only 100,000 exchange points, so it's better to keep it. Gzji suggested to Xianchen. Then keep it. Xianchen nodded and threw the 3 ninja tools into the treasure of the king to enrich his collection. Do you want to keep the 6 Hooked Jade Reincarnation Eye in the style of Otsutsuki Mogura? Gzji asked. If I don't keep it, I would have been in Huangquan and Liangzaka, and it's useless to keep it. Xianchen shook his head. What about this fat guy? Recycled together, it's just a chakra fruit. What I don't lack now is chakra. That's good. There are a total of 800,000 exchange points. Gzji waved her hand. The 3 corpses disappeared, and Xianchen's exchange points were also 800,000 more. Xianchen nodded, and then spent 1 million exchange points to buy frozen fruits without side effects. Those with side effects only cost 500,000 points, while those without side effects require 1 million exchange points. It can only be said that the system is really black. These 3 guys are still big bosses. They are so worthless. Xianchen looked at the only 100,000 exchange points left, and despised the Otsutsuki trio. If it wasn't to buy frozen fruit for Conan, Xianchen would not want to sell it. Sarah and I left first. Xianchen put away the frozen fruit, said hello to Gzji, and took Sarah out of the system space. This is where the dragon veins are located. Where are the dragon veins? Why can't I feel them? Sarah looked around. There are no more dragon veins. Xianchen shook his head, then took Sarah's hand and said, let's go. I'll take you back first. Sarah bit her lip, looked at Xianchen and said, well, I don't want to go back. I want to be with you. Sarah looked at Xianchen with crystal clear eyes. As long as Xianchen said no, she would cry to Xianchen. Xianchen touched Sarah's soft red hair and said softly, you just abandoned your people like this. I want to be with you. After hesitating for a while, Sarah looked at Xianchen firmly. I don't want to go back to the cold palace. That's not what I want. Sometimes I'd rather live in an ordinary family, Sarah said with a low expression. Queen Lulan's mission is actually to protect the dragon veins. Now that the dragon veins are gone, there is no need for me to be the Queen of Lulan. Sarah squatted down and hugged her legs. Actually, my queen is just a symbol at all. I can't handle national affairs or anything, and no one will let me handle it. The palace is a cage for me. If it weren't for my mother, I might not be able to handle it. Be a queen. In the days when I was with Chen and Xie, I was actually very satisfied. Although Xie bullied me before, I no longer blame her in my heart. Sarah spoke silently, but Xianchen didn't speak to comfort her, and sat on the ground to be her listener. Time passed slowly, and as Sarah spoke, she fell asleep in Xianchen's arms. Xianchen smiled lightly, and then said softly, "What a willful little queen." Xianchen Dao doesn't hate Sarah's waywardness. It wasn't until evening that Sarah woke up, rubbed her eyes and hurriedly searched for Xianchen. Looking around, she didn't find Xianchen's figure. Sarah, who thought that Xianchen had left, had tears in her eyes, and then they stayed like a downpour. "Chen, you big villain, you said you wouldn't leave me. Your words don't count. Who left you?" Xianchen looked at Sarah with black lines all over his head. He found that the little queen was a little dumb, and he was by her side, but she couldn't see it. Sarah's tears stopped. She looked down at Xianchen lying on the ground, and asked dumbly, "Why are you lying on the ground?" "Because it's comfortable to lie down." Xianchen rolled her eyes at her. Sarah didn't see that he was such a big living person. Whether his presence was too low, or Sarah was too stupid. Sarah smiled awkwardly, and then whispered, "It's so dark. How can people see you lying on the ground?" Chapter 192 Return to the island. "Have you really decided not to go back to be the queen?" Xianchen asked. "I felt that my previous life was very uncomfortable. It's not as comfortable as being with you. You seem to have a special attraction." Sarah whispered. Her voice was so low that most people couldn't hear it at all. "If you are really willing to give up the queen's position, come with me." Xianchen patted Sarah's head and said, "Really?" Sarah jumped up and asked Xianchen. Immediately, Sarah's face flushed, but she didn't get up. Instead, she fell into Xianchen's arms. She felt that Xianchen's body had a special smell, which was very pleasant and attractive. Sarah lay on top of him, not willing to get up at all. Xianchen smiled helplessly. Tsunade and the others also liked to lie on top of him. Sometimes they didn't get up for a long time. They all blamed the attraction of the opposite sex. If Xianchen was given a chance to start over, Xianchen would definitely be responsive to the system. Say, "Give me a little more power." Golem tilde. Sarah blushed and covered her stomach. She hadn't eaten for a long time. She was a little hungry. Xianchen looked at the blushing Sarah and laughed. Sarah's cheeks were even redder because of Xianchen's laughter. Although the stomach cry was nothing, it was a bit embarrassing in the eyes of the girls, especially when the stomach growl was heard by others. Sarah slapped Xianchen angrily, then raised her face and said, "I didn't see that this queen is hungry. So why don't you prepare food for this queen as soon as possible?" "Is the queen hungry? Why didn't I know?" Xianchen looked at Sarah dazedly. Damn, Sarah's mouth bulged, her heart very uneasy. After playing around for a while, Xianchen stopped teasing her and caught a rabbit, which was golden, crispy and fragrant. Sarah was very happy to eat it. "I've decided that you will be the queen's royal chef in the future, specially preparing meals for this queen." Sarah raised her head. Xianchen reached out and grabbed Sarah and slapped her a few times. Sarah calmed down and looked at Xianchen pitifully with tears in her eyes. "From today onwards, you are my queen maid, and you are specifically pinching my shoulders and beating my back. Did you hear me?" I'm not your maid." Sarah snorted, turning her head away from Xianchen's hateful face. Talk and laugh with Sarah, and the night is over. Early the next morning, Sarah took Xianchen and walked towards the palace. Although she was no longer ready to be the queen, it was impossible for her to quit the job. Although Sarah was a bit willful, she would not so irresponsible. Came to the palace, summoned Lulan's ministers, and Sarah immediately announced her abdication. However, the minister of Lulan did not give any dissuasion. Seeing Sarah's abdication, Xianchen felt like he was joking, but it was understandable that Sarah was actually a mascot in Lulan, and her rights had been emptied by the ministers below. Now that Sarah is about to abdicate, they can't wait. How could it be discouraged? "Sarah, I feel like you are the same queen. No wonder you chose not to be a queen and leave with me." "Humphrey, whoever said that, I'm still very authoritative," Sarah said with a little nose, but she didn't even believe what she said. "I see that your ministers all look like 2 or 5 boys, or I will help you kill them." Xianchen suggested. "Don't, although I also see them unhappy, but without them, Lulan also fell apart," Sarah said quickly. Xianchen smiled. It's not a matter of time before Lulan will be destroyed." Anyway, when the plot started, the country of Lulan had already disappeared. It is estimated that in the next few years, Lulan will cease to exist. It is estimated that Lulan was destroyed by others during the Third Ninja World War. The target is most likely the Land of Winds. "Let's go. Let's leave." Xianchen shook his head, not thinking about that anymore. "Yeah." Sarah nodded, looked back at the palace where she had lived for 12 years, and left with Xiangjun. When I came out of Lulan Kingdom, I realized how small Lulan is, Sarah said softly, looking at the endless desert. Don't sigh, let's go. Xiangjun shook his head. After staying in the parallel world for a few months, Xiangjun missed Tsunade and the others a little. What's the hurry? Are you in a hurry to meet your good friend? Sarah pouted and said jealously. Of course, although it may only be a few days for them, but for me, I haven't seen them for several months, and of course I miss them. Xiangjun said as a matter of course. Humphrey. Sarah snorted coldly, then threw off Xiangjun's hand and strode forward. Damn Xiangjun, I decided to ignore you for a month, but a month seems to be too long, so a day. An hour, Sarah secretly said in her heart. Xiangjun looked at Sarah, who was being petty, with a faint smile, and followed behind. Xiangjun is used to Sarah's petty temper behavior, and it is estimated that Sarah will take the initiative to talk to him after a while. Sure enough, within 5 minutes, Sarah stopped and said with a pout, I don't know how to coax me. I really don't know how you found a girlfriend. No way, with a naturally handsome face, all girlfriends will come to you automatically. Xiangjun said narcissistically after blowing on Liu Hai. Humphrey. I'm so narcissistic that I don't have any friends. Sarah turned her head. Narcissism, am I not handsome? Xiangjun approached Sarah, and the distance between the two sides was no more than 3 centimeters. Sarah looked at the face that was so close at hand. Her face was extremely rosy, and she pushed Xiangjun's body away. You, what are you doing so close to me? Are you trying to be a hooligan? Sarah said loudly. That's right. I'm really playing a hooligan. Xiangjun nodded. You actually accepted 5.5. Sarah stared at Xiangjun with wide eyes. It's hard to admit, I'll take you away. At your forward speed, it is estimated that it will be until next year. Xiangjun reached out and hugged Sarah and flew into the sky. How does it feel to be in the sky? It's normal. Sarah leaned against Xiangjun's arms. Her eyes were excited, but her mouth was very disgusting, typical of her dislike of integrity. Soon Xiangjun took Sarah back to the island of the Land of Water. The girls who originally saw Xiangjun come back with excited expressions. When they saw Sarah, their faces were immediately pulled down, and their expressions were very ugly. After going out for a few days, they actually brought back another girl, especially Xiaonan. Looking at Xiangjun holding a girl about her age, her mouth bulged. She didn't look at Xiangjun angrily, and looked at Sarah with hostile eyes. Chapter 193 Frozen Fruit. Okay, Xiangjun, you just went out for a few days, but you turned back a girl. Is it because you are too daring, or I can't lift a knife? Chen, you will be hit with a hatchet like this. Mikoto looked at Xiangjun gently. Xiangjun looked at Mikoto's gentle smile, and instead of feeling warm, he felt a little bit of coolness. Mikoto, don't look at me like that. I'm a little scared. Xiangjun sneered. I don't know if it was an illusion. Xiangjun seemed to see Brother Cheng from heaven beckoning to him. Hey, you also know you're afraid. Tsunade folded his arms and looked at Xiangjun with a sneer. Xiaonan, brother, I'll bring you a good thing. Seeing the 3 girls who were staring at them, Xiangjun could only change the subject. HMPH. The angry Xiaonan ignored him at all. Xiangjun shook his head in disappointment. It seems that you don't want Xiaonan, so I can only give the gift to Trumim, who said I didn't want it. Xiaonan was anxious when he heard it. Xiangjun smiled and stopped teasing Xiaonan. He took out the frozen fruit from the system backpack and handed it to Xiaonan. 12. This fruit seems very similar to the rockberry fruit I have eaten. Kushina looked at the frozen fruit. This is also a devil fruit, a frozen fruit, and a devil fruit of the same level as the rockberry. Xiangjun said. Kushina just ate this thing to get the fusion? Tsunade asked curiously. That's not wrong done, but it directly creates magma. It looks the same as wrong done, but there is actually a big gap. The power of wrong done is not as strong as that of rockberry, unless you add natural energy and use immortal methods. Xiangjun said. I really want to let people get the bloodline limit directly. Trumim looked at Xiangjun with sparkling eyes. Look at me, it's useless, I only have this fruit in my hand. Xiangjun said helplessly. If his exchange points are enough, Xiangjun doesn't mind exchanging one for Trumim, but he has 100,000 exchange points now and can only buy 1 insect fruit with side effects. In fact, there is still a flower fruit in Xiangjun's hand, but the flower fruit has been forgotten by Xiangjun in the corner. If he can't see it, Xiangjun may never remember it. When Trumim heard this, she quickly looked at Xiaonan and looked at her pitifully. Xiaonan snorted proudly, then ignored the pitiful Trumim, and bit down on the frozen fruit. It looked like a fruit made from a lump of hard ice, and it seemed to be very hard. But Xiaonan bit down a piece of the flesh in one bite. Then Xiaonan's face turned blue and purple, and looked at Xiangjun resentfully. Ha ha ha. Jukes and I looked at Xiaonan's appearance and laughed loudly. She had the most say in how bad the devil fruit was. Now Kushina remembers the scene at that time, and can't help shivering. Seeing that Xiaonan also enjoyed the taste of devil fruit now, Kushina couldn't help but gloat over the misfortune. Brother, you're not lying to me, are you? It's really unpalatable. even worse than the food cooked by Juxinai's sister," Xiaonan said with a bitter face. "Damn Xiaonan." Juxinai's laughter stopped abruptly, and she looked at Xiaonan angrily. "I'm really sorry that the food I made was not delicious. Devil fruit tastes like this. It's the same when I ate it. I'll get you some water. You can take it easy." Xianchan pinched Xiaonan's bitter melon face. Hatilda Trumim patted the still developing baby chestnut, and said with a sigh of relief, "Fortunately, I didn't eat it." After finishing speaking, she looked at Xiaonan with schadenfreude, and Trumim looked happy when Xiaonan looked so bitter. "Humphrey, you are jealous. You have to eat as much as you want." Xiaonan snorted softly. "You Tilda." Trumim's face flushed with anger. She reached out and snatched the frozen fruit that Xiaonan had bitten in, and then took a bite. Enduring the bitter taste of the frozen fruit, Trumim swallowed, and then made a face at Xiaonan, very proud. "Ugh! Trumim, I'm not finished with you," Xiaonan shouted. "That Trumim, in fact, frozen fruit. Only the first bite is effective," Xianchan reminded. Trumim threw the frozen fruit in her hand, and lay on the beach with no love deserved. Xiaonan said gloatingly. "Water, give me water, it's unpalatable to death," Trumim shouted while lying on the beach. Mikoto handed Trumim a glass of water. Trumim quickly got up to take it, and then kept rinsing her mouth, but the smell of devil fruits was not so easy to eliminate. "Is it really that bad?" Tsunade picked up the frozen fruit on the ground. "Why don't you try it?" Kushina said with a smirk. "Forget it," looking at your uneasy and kind smile. "I won't try it either. Tsunade is not stupid. Xiaonan and Trumim have already tested it themselves, and she is not that hard-headed yet." After a long time, Xiaonan, who had recovered, sighed, and the icy cold air made frost form in the air. Xiaonan was stunned for a moment, then stretched out his hand. An ice blade was created out of thin air. "Wow!" Trumim exclaimed, her eyes full of envy. "Shiu clan's being done. I'm really envious." Xiaonan threw the ice blade into the sea with all his strength, and the sea water in a radius of 100 meters was completely frozen into solid ice. "So powerful," Xiaonan said in surprise. She didn't use much power at all, and she froze the sea with a radius of 100 meters. If she used all her strength, she felt that she could freeze an island. "It's so enviable to be able to use being done without 120 knots," Tsunade said as he put his arms around Xiaonan's shoulders. "Leaning against Xiaonan is very cool. In summer, when the temperature is high, Xiaonan is a mobile air conditioner." "Yes, although it's not as solid as my rock berries, it's already very powerful." Kushina patted Xiaonan on the shoulder. "I think my frozen fruit is powerful," Xiaonan said unconvinced. After the two girls exchanged eyes for a while, they looked at Xianchan. "Chen, brother, who do you think is the best?" "What's up for grabs is the fruit of the same level. No matter what ability you have, it depends on the person who uses it," Xianchan said helplessly, not knowing what was up for grabs. "By the way, Mikoto, this knife is for you." Xianchan took out Fudo Yuhan and handed it to Mikoto. "Isn't this the Futomiki that Tsunade's sister gave you?" "No, but this Fudo soul sword is no different from the one given by Tsunade," Xianchan explained. By the way, Xianchan also talked about the parallel world with the girls in general. The girls also expressed their surprise. It was the first time they heard the term parallel world. After asking in detail, Tsunade and the others took Sarah aside to talk, and warned Xianchan not to eavesdrop. Xianchan spreads his hands. Could he still eavesdrop? To listen is to listen openly. Chapter 194. Bring the girls into the system space. Lying on the soft sand, with the sea breeze blowing, Xianchan soon fell asleep. But soon, Xianchan was shaken by several girls. "What's wrong?" Xianchan opened his eyes and looked at the menacing girls. "What's wrong? Let me ask you, who is Juxinai?" asked while pinching her waist. "You're really capable. You know that Jinwoo hides her beauty." Tsunade folded his arms and looked at Xianchan with a sneer. Xianchan glared at Sarah and said, "Xj is the manager of my world. She has no way to leave that world. You can understand it as the will of the world." Xianchan made up and explained to the girls. "Really? How do I feel that you are lying to me?" Kushina stared at him tightly, and had to say that Kushina's sixth sense was very keen. "Do I have to lie to you?" Xianchan asked rhetorically. "Humphrey, if you've passed the test, you can't hide anything from us in the future," Kushina said angrily. "Then take us to your world to visit. Shouldn't it be a problem?" Mikoto asked. "Of course, no problem." Xianchan nodded, and then brought the girls into the system space. Xja looked at Xianchan with so many people coming in, her expression was slightly stunned, and then she smiled and said hello to the girls. After introducing each other to know each other, the girls put Xianchan aside and chatted enthusiastically. Xianchan didn't know why they were able to chat so happily not long after they met. Sitting next to them and listening to what they were talking about for a while, Xianchan turned around and left, because everything they were talking about was related to him. Looking at the black lines on Xianchan's head, he knew that they were definitely not complimenting him. Looking at Kushina and Tsunade who were booing, Xianchan decided that tonight, he must teach them a good lesson, and make them beg for mercy. Kushina and Tsunade were still happily talking about Xianchan's embarrassing story, not knowing at all that they were going to be unlucky tonight, and it was estimated that they would not be able to get out of bed tomorrow morning. Xianchen, who was bored, found a place to lie down, opened the system mall panel, and began to browse the things in it. What is the most expensive in the system mall? Xianchen was a little curious, because he was afraid of hurting his heart. Xianchen rarely looked at the products in the system mall. Xianchen asked the system to list the most expensive items. Invincible, 99999. Exchange points. Xianchen found that he couldn't see his head, and a series of zeros shaking made him dizzy. At this price, I don't want me to buy it at all. Xianchen complained. It's too shocking. A poor man like me dares to look at the most expensive products. It's really inflated. Xianchen shook his head and said, but looking at the introduction, Xianchen knows why it is so expensive. After buying Invincible, it is unreasonable and directly invincible. After that, I checked the 3000 avenues, chaotic beads, Pangu axe and other products. Xianchen found that this place was not suitable for him, so don't look at it. Closing down the system mall with a congested heart, Xianchen looked like a bitter melon, but Xianchen also had a goal in his heart. We must find a way to get the most expensive Invincible, and when the time comes, any Dao, Pangu, and Huangshan Emperor will all kneel in front of him. Although the string of zeros had hit him very hard, he had to have a dream in life. Xianchen's goal was to get that Invincible, and then the heavens and the world were the only ones who were invincible. The system lottery draw can draw anything, in case Xianchen has a bad luck one day, and he can draw this most valuable ability at once. So be a man to have a little dream, in case it comes true. Xianchen found a place to sleep, and when he woke up and went back to find Tsunade and the others, he was speechless and found that they were still chatting with interest. Let's go, stop talking, leave first, said Xianchen. Why do you want to leave? I feel good here. Yes, the scenery here is so good, the air is fresh, and there are delicious food. I don't want to leave. Jukes and I looked at Xianchen with big watery eyes. X's quite lonely here alone. Let's stay with her. Xianchen was speechless, and he was reluctant to leave because of the system space, but let them be happy. If you want to be here, just stay here. Tsunade, Kushina, Mikoto, come here. I have something very important to talk to you about. Xianchen looked at Tsunade and the other three with a serious expression. What's the matter? Seeing Xianchen's serious expression, Tsunade and the others also turned serious. You will know when you come. Xianchen walked towards the castle built by Xu not far away with a serious face. Tsunade three girls followed with puzzled faces. When the three girls came to the castle, the gate of the castle slammed shut, and the bright castle became extremely dark. Ha ha ha. You dare to speak ill of me? Have you figured out how to be cleaned up by me? Xianchen suddenly appeared behind them, startling them. You big rascal, you scared me to death. Jixinai hit Xianchen angrily, even though Jixinai was carefree. In fact, she was not very courageous. The sudden darkness of Xianchen just now, coupled with Xianchen's weird laughter, scared Kushina almost screamed out. It's really boring. Tsunade glanced at Xianchen with contempt. It's completely a child's trick, so I can only scare Kushina. Mikoto chuckled while covering her mouth. Mikoto, don't talk nonsense, I'm not afraid, Kushina said dissatisfied. I'm not looking for you to talk about this. Xianchen had a black line. Then what are you looking for from us? Xianchen smiled, and then used space teleportation to bring the three girls to a warm room, and the most attractive thing in the whole room was the huge Kwang. Tsunade three girls blushed, as if realizing something. Xianchen grabbed the shyest Mikoto and kissed Mikoto's soft lips. Tsunade and Kushina looked at each other, and then quietly ran towards the door of the room. After running to the door, they found that the door could not be opened at all. In the system space, Xianchen, like Xu, has absolute control over the system space. Tsunade and Kushina want to run, and they have to ask him whether he agrees or not. By the time Tsunade and Kushina came back helplessly, Xianchen and Mikoto had already started a fierce battle. After that, Tsunade and Kushina did not escape. In particular, Xianchen also took special care of Tsunade and Kushina. Xu, who was chatting with Xiaonan and the others outside, suddenly turned red. Sister Xu, your face seems to be very red. Xiumim pointed at Xu's face and said. Sarah and Xiaonan also looked at Xu in confusion, not understanding why she blushed. It's okay, Xu waved her hands again and again. Chapter 195. The Crooked Nawaki. I've lived here for 3 years, and I'm feeling a little bit emotional. Let's move into the system space. Xianchen looked at the island where they lived. Now that all the girls want to stay in the system space, this island is naturally uninhabited. Using Vientiane, without affecting the island, pull up the island from the bottom of the sea and bring it into the system space. After thinking about it, Xianchen turned the island into a floating island and floated in the sky. Isn't this the island we live on? You moved it in, Tsunade said, looking at the island in the sky. That's right. Xianchen nodded, and then brought the girls to the island. Everything on the island is the same as before, nothing has changed. The girls decided to live on this floating island in the future, and they would go down there and play for a while, and then Kushina, Mikoto and the others took Tsuji to rearrange the floating island. Ruxianchin smiled. Let them do whatever they want, as long as they like it. Leaving the system space, Ruxianchin glanced at the boundless sea, then turned into a golden flash and flew towards the mainland. When he came to the country of fire, Ruxianchin found that he seemed to have nowhere to go. First go to see the Nawaki, then go to Konoha to play, just to meet an old classmate. After thinking about it, Ruxianchin decided on the planned route. Because of the spatial coordinates left on the rope 760 tree, Ruxianchin can easily perceive his position, and Ruxianchin did not use the space to teleport, but walked slowly. During the day, he walked slowly, and at night, he went to the system space to find Tsunade and the others to discuss the major event of human reproduction. Half a month later, Ruxianchin crossed the country of fire and came to the country of Taki. That's right. Now Nawaki is staying in the country of Taki. When Ruxianchin saw Nawaki, he couldn't believe that he saw that this guy was Nawaki. The big man of nearly 2 meters is much taller than Ruxianchin. He has a strong back and a sturdy face. He looks similar to a big man in his 30s. Coordinates. Ruxianchin doesn't know him anymore. Chen? Why are you here? Shengshu was very happy when he saw Ruxianchin, and was hugged by a bear-facing Ruxianchin. Ruxianchin quickly pushed the Nawaki away in disgust, but he only hugged women, not men. I said Nawaki, I remember the last time I brought Tsunade to see you, that was 3 years ago, right? It's only been more than 3 years. How did you look like this? What's wrong? I think it's pretty good, very manly. Shengshu felt that he looked pretty good. This is a real man, much better than Ruxianchin's little white face. Shengshu, you don't have a girlfriend yet? Ruxianchin said affirmatively. How do you know? Are you keeping an eye on me? Fuck you, you're not a beautiful woman. I'm paying attention to what you are doing. Do you think you can find a girlfriend just like you? Ruxianchin said with a blow. Why can't I find a girlfriend? I just don't want to. There are many little girls who are obsessed with me. Shengshu retorted with a flushed face. Ha ha. Ruxianchin laughed twice, his eyes full of contempt. It is estimated that only the blind can see him. You actually have time to see me. Where's my sister? Shengshu asked, looking behind him. If your sister sees your face, she probably doesn't want to see you. You look too anxious. Ruxianchin shook his head and said, by the way, why do you still live in this small shabby house? Aren't you afraid of leaking rain on rainy days? Ruxianchin pointed to the house where Nawaki lived. It was tattered, with several holes. If there was a strong wind, it would probably be knocked down by him. I call it frugality. You don't understand it at all. Shengshu said, slightly embarrassed. Really? Ruxianchin glanced at him and said lightly, isn't this poor? Ruxianchin's words turned into sharp knives, stabbing at Shengshu's little heart. These words were too heart-wrenching. Shengshu glanced at Ruxianchin resentfully, then ran to the corner to draw circles. Ruxianchin was shivered by Shengshu's resentful eyes. You can never imagine what it would be like for a big man with 5 big and 3 thick men to stare at you with the eyes of a resentful woman. Resisting the thought of killing him, Ruxianchin walked into Nawaki's hut, and only after entering did he discover that the hut was not only rudimentary on the outside, but even more rudimentary and indescribable on the inside. Only a wooden bed could see. I don't think even mice dare to visit your house, Ruxianchin complained. Hey, Shengshu scratched his head and smirked, his face a little embarrassed. After all, it was too embarrassing to be mixed up like this. Shengshu, your current strength is not weak. Why are you so miserable? Ruxianchin asked curiously. He could clearly feel that Nawaki's strength was at the quasi-shadow level, and this kind of strength could be mixed so badly. Except for Nawaki, there was no one else. Because I can't farm, so wait. You said you lived by farming? Ruxianchin stared at Nawaki, wanting to see if he was stupid. With all your strength, you can hunt better than this one. When he ran to farm, Ruxianchin didn't know what his brain circuit was. Don't ninjas make money from missions? You can go to the underground black market to pick up missions. Even if you don't want to do missions, go hunting. You have to go farming. Have you ever learned farming? I think you should go raising pigs. Ruxianchin kept complaining. Actually, I raised pigs, but they all died. Shengshu scratched his head and said. Ruxianchin was speechless. Do you drink water? Shengshu picked up the teapot next to it, poured it and found that there was no water, feeling a little embarrassed. Wait. I'll burn it for you. Shengshu made a mark with both hands, sprayed water from his mouth into the kettle, and then used a fire escape to start boiling the water. No. Use it. Ruxianchin said word by word with black lines all over his head. Can he drink the water spit out by the Nawaki? Ruxianchin now has the heart to kill the second-hand Nawaki. This guy is getting more and more second. When I went to ninja school, I remember that he was not so second. Oh, then do you have something to eat? I don't have anything to entertain you here, Shengshu said embarrassedly. He was almost embarrassed to death today. I have already seen it. Ruxianchin said silently. There was not even a grain of rice in the rice vat. What did he use to entertain himself? To be honest, You are the most pitiful ninja I've ever seen. You can take the 10 million tals. Don't be polite to brother. Brother has money, Xianchen said aggressively. Who do you think of me? How can I? Sheng Shu ask for your money? Take it back quickly. Sheng Shu frowned, with a dignified face. Oh. Since you don't accept it, then I won't force you to. Xianchen stared at Nawaki in astonishment. Seeing Sheng Shu snatching the 10 million tals away, he said to himself, for the sake of the old lady, I will accept it, and don't do this in the future. If you like this audiobook, subscribe the channel for more videos like this. Leave some comment and let me know if you guys like this story, or you have a web novel you like and want to hear its audiobook. I will be happy to create them for you. Please like, share, and leave a comment on the video.